Hola, buenos días, soy Nico.
Daddy, am I your baby?
And today we're here to finish off another wonderful week's worth of content. Well, yes. But before we get started, if you like this kind of content, make sure to follow me on patreon.com/Nicosaesthetics for more exclusive videos, 200 plus to be exact, and weekly live streams where we have multifaceted conversations with a varied panel. If that sounds interesting to you, definitely tune in. And last video's comment was essentially going over the Cherry v. Boom scenario surrounding her and Lamont Stennis, who, if you did not know, was a simp and paint director who began to dabble in gay for pay performances on OnlyFans, who got outed by Miss Cherry Boom for being trans attracted while also supporting political figures that are actively targeting the trans community. The comment basically said this channel gives an amazing summary of who not to follow on social media, and I just want to preface this with that was never my goal. I'm not here to stop people's bags. I'm just here to talk about what people willingly put on the internet. So sometimes it is detrimental to their own financial benefit what they put online, but at the end of the day, they chose to do so as grown adults, and I'm going to let them have that. Nico, I'm sipping a cup of wine. I don't know. This might tie into the Nico's quick chat if I decide to go into it, but I'm just not feeling it today. I need a little pick me up, and y'all said y'all enjoyed a little tipsy video, so here we are. Today we're sipping a bottle called Papi. It is a rosé. It's not super strong in the alcohol content along with the kickback that you get when you sip it. This isn't gonna be a scenario where I become like, oh, wino like Tasha K, because honestly, I don't want to get tipsy online and get caught up in a legal situation like her. This is more so, I've had a long day. I've had a long day and the world is very stacked against me, but here we are. So let's continue. Today we're going to be talking about a performer who is 35 years old, hailing from Colombia, named Yostin Andres Mosquera. This crime is currently pertaining to his relationship with two older parties named Paul Longsworth, who was 71, and Albert Alfonso, who were 62, while they both resided in London, England. This is an interesting situation basically surrounding a kept boy and his partial couple. Nico, why do you say partial couple? It's because the couple had an open understanding, such as, per public statements, Paul and Albert had an open relationship where Albert had a super happy adult fun time relationship with Yostin, and it was understood and known throughout both the couple and their inner community. Though months passed of what seemed to be the perfect arrangement between Paul, Albert, and Yostin, some nefarious activities soon came into play. Though originally it was told to the police by Yostin that Paul and Albert had a coercive, tumultuous relationship that had a lot more drama behind the scenes, from what the blatant digital evidence could say, Yostin was completely in the wrong and simply plotting on trying to get it back while in a different country. I say this for the sole fact that Yostin was originally found in a non-heavily populated part of London, carrying what seemed to be a large suitcase, heavily hemorrhaging what seemed to be red Kool-Aid. And from there, he was seen by multiple passerbys along with the police officer who was on duty. So while he was stationed, he began to question the man carrying the mysterious object, and from there he noticed that Yostin only spoke Spanish. So fortunately, he had came across a passerby who also spoke fluent Spanish, so they began to communicate through him.
It's really heavy and there's coming out of it. So we're going to need some police up here quite urgently, I think. We had a gentleman up here who was dragging a case behind him, a black gentleman. At the time we were speaking to him, he didn't speak English, and a guy on a bike had stopped who actually spoke Spanish, so we were trying to have a conversation with him. He says the case of the wheels are broken and what have you. He says there's car parts and the case is broken, it's really heavy and there's coming out of it. Right, it looks like there's coming out of the case. He then said there were two cases, so he went up the road to get the second case. The guy on the bike, who's just a member of the public, followed him. The guy has now run off. We're now with the case. I mean, it might not... He said it was car parts, oil. It doesn't smell of that at all. It looks like to us.
Do the tags on it have any names or anything on them? Yes. The guy says to Mr. Albert.
Hang on, your officers are here now.
Okay, brilliant.
From there, Yostin began to say that the large suitcase was only filled with motor vehicle parts that were currently leaking oil because of a recent mechanic update on his vehicle. Clearly, the police officer was like, well, this fluid is not a dark brown, oily substance, so I'm going to call the dispatcher while I have you here. It is then that Yostin came forward and said, well, if you must know, there's actually 2 suitcases rather than 1. If you'd like, I can go and retrieve the other one so that you can investigate it as well. And the passerby that was originally translating for the officer said that he would be able to follow him and basically check up on the second suitcase. Though, as they begin to go back to where Yostin was transporting said suitcases, he ran off and left the officer with the leaking suitcase along with the bystander in confusion. So from there, they eventually found him and the second suitcase, which housed Albert Alfonso. Nico, yes, both of said elderly men were found in the suitcases, unfortunately no longer with us, and from there they began to do deeper research into the scenario. Yes, it was true that Yostin had been staying with them as Albert's personal kept boy, and it was an open and understood relationship between he and Paul, but from there, Yostin began to dig deeper into their finances, seeing as how Paul was 71, Albert was 62, Yostin was 35. It is assumed to be believed that he thought he could get a come up on said men. After recording multiple adult films with them throughout the months that he had stayed there, along with the sexual encounters off film, it was a comfortable arrangement until one day Yostin decided to attack Paul out of the blue while Albert was away. It is alleged that the weapon that was used in said moment was a hammer and was lodged into the back of Paul's skull. Unfortunately, by the time Albert got home, there was no evidence of said crime immediately. So what Yostin did, seeing as how there was no clear evidence, was performed a super happy adult fun time activity / moment with Albert, which was recorded. And from there, he then took him out of this world too, and began to see how he could collect money from their residual income, such as ATMs, life insurance policies. Unfortunately, the money that he tried to request out of said bank account was denied, but he managed to get access to a few ATMs before the police originally caught him. So from here, it begins a larger conversation because honestly, the 2 elderly men, they're victims. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And Yostin was clearly trying to come up, seeing as how he was involved in super happy adult fun time activities with a wealthy elderly couple out in London while he was from Colombia. After the evidence of him going to multiple ATMs, how he basically tried to deceive the cops and say that it was motor oil coming out of the suitcase because of a recent mechanic visit, there's not much denying what could possibly happen, seeing as how evidence surrounding their mutual friends and family / community that they did not have an outward reason to be volatile towards each other, especially since Yostin was the common denominator and took Albert out after the initial act was done without alerting him what had happened. But with that, I'll leave the conversation up to y'all. How do you feel about older parties targeting younger people from different countries, for example, for what is basically sexual tourism, with a financial dollar sign attached to it, becoming the victims of said partner? Because understandably, super happy adult fun time, especially when it pertains to business, it is a clear-cut situation. Yostin had a clear financial pipeline from Albert to him for the sexual access that he gave him, along with the understanding from Paul that this was only supposed to be a financial commitment. But it seems that he got hungrier and hungrier for their supposed wealth from what he's seen as the kept boy, and was eventually locked up over this case, seeing as how this happened in, I believe, June of this year. But I wanted to bring it to light, seeing as how it does show there is a darker side to the kept boy experience, not only from the kept boy's perspective, because sometimes some people use financial power to gain control over you, and make you do things that you wouldn't necessarily agree to. But in this scenario, he basically found an elderly couple who were seemingly an easy lick and tried to take advantage of that scenario, but went about it in a completely dark and unexpected way. But with that being said, I'll leave the conversation up to y'all. Did you hear about the story when it originally broke, seeing as how Yostin is from Colombia and they all resided in London when it happened? If you did, are you familiar with stories like this where the sugar baby begins to become a bit greedy in what they ask for from their financial partner and decide to actively try to gain access to their finances in any form that they can? But with that being said, I'll leave the conversation up to y'all, and I'll see you guys next time. Boop. And now for a brief yet sincere shout out to this week's 32 subscribers, Diplomatic Jen and Dion J. Your continued support is greatly appreciated, and thank you once again to everyone who supports the channel. This week's live stream discussion is going to be another virtual hangout, seeing as how we've had multiple topics for the past few weeks and we deserve a little bit of time to unwind. If that sounds interesting to you, definitely tune in.